Hi, this is Annabelle and this is my tutorial for the summer event. This is my finished card. So let's rewind now and go back to previous Annabelle a few hours ago. I chose to do a fruit skewer for mine with a 1 in a million sentiment. I've also included for you a PDF with some pictures of the fruit that we're going to be colouring. Not that I don't think you know what fruit looks like, but because we're thinking about colours a lot, it's nice to have some reference material to go from. If you've got any real fruit at home to sub in for this, do it from the real fruit. You know, I'm a big supporter of using references when you colour to try and get some details from real life in with what you're doing. So I've given you that to print out if you want to have that for reference. I'm going to suggest that you print out 2 versions of the card topper, one all in black like I've done on the left to refer back to when you lose details or need to see what you're doing, and then on the right I've printed out one with the grayscale fruit skewer or kebab. I'm going to probably switch between the two because skewer is quite hard to say. So that's on the left, and I've lined it up so you can see what I'm colouring. So I've got 2 versions on my paper, one to use, one to refer to. And as we go, we're going to do it in 7 sections. We're going to do the skewer and then all the pieces of fruit in turn. And all the time I'm going to be referring back to my pictures so I know what kind of colours I'm going for. And I'm not sticking to the 24 box. I'm going to use any colour that comes my way that I fancy, because it's a building colours. So if you've only got the 24, you can build up colours fine with that in exactly the same way, but it might take you 2 pencils rather than 1 to achieve what you need. So let's have a look at colouring fruit. We're going for semi-realism. We haven't got time for realism with pencils, I don't think. I want to make this pretty short and sweet, though. Look at me gabbing away. Let's get started with our first bits of colour. So I'm going to use Polychromo pencils as normal for me. If you want to use a different pencil, you want to use wax pencils, that's fine. I don't think we're doing anything particularly weird or specific to using oil pencils. Use whatever pencils you need. So I'm going to start with my white base layer all over. Not an exciting job, but will help us make the colours pop. So I'm doing firm, even pressure over the whole lot, trying to get a sort of a consistent layer over our stick and our fruit. Using my pencil slightly on the side, so not using a very sharp end. That gives us a smoother finish when we're doing this sort of blanket covering I'm doing at the moment. So all over once, and this is our base layer, allowing us to blend on top of it. Remember, you can always tidy up this if you go over the lines, whatever, you can always tidy it up afterwards. So I've done a layer of white all over once. You can already see that this is making it pop off our, well, I'm using Kendall Miller Buff from the shop, but you could use any type of craft card. Kendall Miller Buff is quite a smooth craft card, so if you're not getting the same results from me, that might be why that we're using quite a smooth surface. If you're using wax pencils or maybe pastel pencils, you might want to use something rougher that's got more tooth on it, but this is ideal for polychromos. So let's have a look at a skewer. I have a prop skewer. Here we go. And you can see immediately it's actually a very pale colour. So although it's wood, it's actually very pale wood. So what I'm going to do is start with a golden yellow as our base colour. So for that, I'm going to be using 109, which is dark chrome yellow in the Polychromos. So let's do a gentle cover of that all over our kebab stick. Now what I'm also going to do while we're here is make it look a bit more like the kebab is going into the fruit. So I'm just going to and a little bit of that. So I've got my 109 all over, and then what I'd quite like to do is do a little bit of a 109 into the top of our Satsuma, and then a little bit into the top of our banana, and then a little bit into the bottom of the banana, and that'll help those top 3 fruits look like they're really on the stick. And then I'm also on the kiwi going to drop a bit of 109 a bit lower as well. So they're all the little bits of skewer that I'm going to do. Next job I'm going to move on to, I'm going to add a bit of brown. So for that I'm going to add burnt ochre, which is 187, and I'm going to start to concentrate this as a sort of shade colour. So I'm going to do this on the right hand side of my skewer all over as normal. Break my pencil nib straight away. So I'm doing this all right side of wherever I've put down my 109. So we're having the right hand side as our shade side. So as normal I'm going to make my light come in from the top left. So all my shades going to be right or bottom right. Okie dokie, then we're going to do a blend layer in white. And I'm going to use my floofer to get rid of the bit. So we're just going to blend those colours together by going over the whole lot, just a blending layer of white. And then I'm going to sharpen up my white, which as you can see is not very sharp, because I'm going to concentrate a little layer of white now on the left hand side, like it's the sort of shine on the skewer. So pressing hard, left hand side for my skewer bits. Then I'm going to swap back to my 187, give it a sharpen. So this is a pale brown colour if you're not using Polychromos. Get it nice and sharp. And then I'm going to add in only a little bit more dark on the right hand side, but a few lines like they're the grains of the wood. So a bit on the right, a bit on the right, and then a few lines like grains. So did a dark on the right hand side, and then a few sort of flicks, I suppose, to make it look like the skewer is actually made out of wood, and give it a little bit of a floof. It was only a sort of a subtle reference to it being wooden. Just seeing if anywhere else could take a little bit more of the liney texture. Okie dokie, and then I'm going to now swap over to my 177 walnut brown, and I'm going to add in just a little bit of shade now underneath each piece of fruit. So just a little bit of a line, and then little squiggle movements to make a little bit of a drop shadow. Same again here and here. Curve that line a little to make it look like it's going into the banana. And then here. So it looks like it's got the grape above it. And then where we've drawn in bits of skewer, I'm going to just tidy that up with a curve in 177, where we're suggesting that the fruit is in being impaled, And then on this one, I can see that I could add a little bit more of that stripy effect with my 177. Maybe do a couple on that top piece on the right hand side, couple. So trying to concentrate the darker colours onto the shade side of our skewer. Okay, that's skewer done. Let's move on to the fruit. So the first piece of fruit I'm going to do, I'm going to go top to bottom, so it's going to be our watermelon. So I've been having a good look at the watermelon colours, and I think there's quite a lot of orange pigment in with the red, so it's not just red, there's sort of a bit of an orangey hue. And you can see where it's out of the light, it's actually quite a dark red. So I'm going to use an orangey colour, an orangey red, and then a darker redder to cover some of the colours in my piece of watermelon. I think watermelon is easily the toughest bit of fruit on this kebab to actually colour. It's such a specific texture and we don't have hours and hours to do it. So let's try and use one little trick to help us see how we get on. So for my base layer colour, I'm going to use Pale Geranium Lake, which is 121. And I'm just going to do a gentle colour of that all over. So another sort of base layer, just like we did our white. So if you want to move your piece of paper around to colour it in a bit more of a handy position, etc., please do. I'm keeping it still to ensure you don't get seasick while you're watching, because I've already got a slightly wobbly table, so I want to give you the best shot of not feeling seasick. And then I want to add in a bit more of an orangey tone, so I'm using 115, which is cadmium orange, and I'm sideways on with my pencil, going to add a bit of orange into proceedings. So I'm sort of getting the watermelon colour from this point. Remember, it doesn't matter if it's a bit liney because we are going to blend in a minute. I'm also going to add in some 225, which is dark red, and I'm going to add that sort of on the edges, but I'm being gentle. It's quite loose. I'm not pressing down hard at all. I just want to get some dark red in. I'm going to do my edges first, and then a gentle layer of it over the top. Then I'm going to swap to my white and give that a blend. I'm going to swap directions for my blend. So if your result is looking liney, when you do a blend layer, swap directions for a bit, and that helps the blend to be smoother. And then I'm going to go back in with my 121. And go for a smooth layer of that. And once again, a gentle layer of dark red. So if you're not doing polychromos, we've done bright red, orange and dark red, so you can use your corresponding pencils. Okay, what I'm going to do now is avail myself of an electric eraser. So there's one of these in, there's actually a lovely pink one in the shop, but I've got my electric razor set up with my rubber. You can see I've already been using it to do similar techniques, and what I want to do is I'm going to use an edge of the rubber, so just make sure there's some protruding. If you use it when the rubber's gone all the way down, you actually scratch your paper, so make sure you've got some white on the top. And what we're going to do is make some sort of a hole pattern. Well, it's going to be a diagonal on the square, but it's going to be top to bottom because it's already on the diagonal on the skewer. I hope that makes sense. What we're going to do is turn it on and then just patch down in a line. I'm going to keep going in a similar direction with each one, and also on that top bit. Then we're going to floof. Then we're going to go over with our white pencil and just do that like we did our bottom layer. We're doing it again now in white pencil. So you can see, because we've saturated the paper quite a lot with our reds already, and we've taken colour away from those spots, actually it's quite easy to leave the spots there whilst going over in a colour. So now I'm going to swap to Pale Geranium Lake again, and I'm going to do a layer again. So when I'm colouring in the direction that we did our holes in. I hope you can see that already seems to have a bit more of a texture than we did have before. So let's go in with our white, make sure it's nice and sharp, and we're going to add some white to some of those holes. Make sure the greatest area of white's concentrated on the left part of the hole. If you've got some areas where there should be a hole but you didn't do one, just mock that up with the white pencil. So now I've got sort of a series of quite diagonal lines all going in one direction, and then we want to go back to our 121, do another layer of our red, and I've lost a bit of orange in mine, so I'm going to grab my 115 and pop back in a bit of the orangey hue. I'm not pressing too hard, but I'm not losing too much of the pattern underneath either. And then we're going to go once again for our rubber, and we're going to pop ourselves out a couple of seeds. So we want sort of oval / pear type shapes. I'm going to put 2 in the middle. They're going to be my pips. Now on my inspo sheet, on my watermelon, they're creamy yellow colour. However, if you want to make people think watermelon immediately, do them in black. So let's do our white layer first. Swap over to our black 199. I'm going to try and colour in the whole thing. There's my 2 pips. We're going to give it one blend with white, and then I'm going to go in with my dark red, pop a bit of a sort of a shadow around the pip. To kind of make it look a bit more sunken. And then I'm also going to give myself a sharpen. And I'm going to add some darker colours to some of those holes. So I'm right siding the hole with my darker colour. Just adding a bit on that side and a little bit on that side. Next thing I want to do is add some highlight or shine to those 2 seeds, and perhaps a little bit to our watermelon. So I'll give myself a sharpen, adding some shine areas left hand side, because that's where our light's coming from on the seeds, and then I'm adding a little bit of white onto this edge on the left. Got two of those. I'm adding a little bit of white because they're going to be the areas that are hitting the light. You do seem to get like the largest area of shine on those corners of our cube. So I'm just adding a bit of white onto those edges so they're not so dark. I'm going to go back in with my 199 black and just make sure the right hand side of both those seeds are nice and black. Now let's go on to our white gel pen and our white Posca pen. With my white gel pen, I'm just going to add a little bit of white gel highlight to some of those little dents that we made. A little bit of white highlight to those top edges, and then a little bit to each seed. And I'm going to pop right now onto my white Posca pen. So I'm just going to add a bit more highlight with my white Posca pen on the two seeds so they properly glint, and then just a few bits on the edges, and then maybe a few on some of the holes that we made. I'm going to let that dry for a second. I'm going to give my black a good sharpen while I wait. Then I'm going to make sure the right hand edge of my seed is very dark and curved. If my white line is a bit too thick, I'm going to lose a bit of it on my pencil. So remember to wipe the white off your pencil nib if you end up dragging any of the white Posca pen. And then I'm going to go with my 121. I'm going to leave it really quite dull, and then I'm going to do a gentle layer of 121 over everything. And yeah, you're losing Posca pen, you're losing gel pen, but what you're doing is you're leaving a sort of a subtle remnant of that part of the colouring you did. As you went, just trying to cover up those lines. I think we're quite watermelon-y. You want to do more layers, do what we did again. Add shadow, add light, add dark bits using your dark 225. Remember to sort of keep going in those diagonal lines like striations. It kind of helps to keep it looking a bit more watermelon-y. And then what I do, back in with my Posca pen, just add a bit more bright to those two seeds, and maybe a little bit on this edge and this edge. I'm going to leave it like that for the watermelon. Okay, next on to our Satsuma. Right, next I'm going to move on to our piece of Satsuma. I'm holding it upside down because we can model our Satsuma on this bit here that we're doing, and I'm actually quite surprised by how rich and dark the overall colour is of the Satsuma. So I'm going to go in, I'm not going to use my paleos, I'm going to go in with my darkest yellow, then some oranges and a blend as our base. So let's do that to start with. I'm also going to leave some areas of white in the pith section. I have to be careful how I say that. So we're going to leave a little bit of an area of white there and a little bit of area of white round the centre. So let's start with that. So we're going to start off with some 109 side of the pencil all over. So we're going to keep a sort of golden yellowy hue with everything above. And then I'm going to go up to the edges, leave a section around this curve for our pith. I'm going to swap over now, and going for an even more golden colour. I'm using my 111, but you could skip this and go straight to oranges. You see it's just that bit of a darker colour. Now I'm going to swap to my 115, also using it pretty much sideways. This is our main base layer. And let's freehand sketch in the line that we're following for our pith. And then I'm just using the circle to add a layer of slightly darker orange up against that pith line, and then we're going to go in with our white and blend that all together. So this is going to be my palest part on my Satsuma. And I'm just going to re-whiten our pith area. And Anna's kindly drawn us some segments to work with, so we're going to stick with them. I'm going to go in with my 115, so this is my dark orange. It's dark cadmium orange. I'm going to need to give it a sharpen because it's very dull. And we're going to sort of draw in cells in between those lines. So if you look at the picture, you can see it on one of the, well, can see it quite clearly on one of the Satsumas. So we're going to do it in a sort of basic way, and hopefully that will land the natural sort of detail to make it look like a Satsuma. So in between our segments, we're drawing some cells in dark orange, sort of trying to get two but not making them too identically sized. So a bit of random going on. And when we've done those, I'm going to do sort of a similar type of effect on the outside, sort of, you know, chunks of darker orange. Okay, and then we're going to go in with our white, give it a sharpen, and I'm just going to trace around the cells with gently with white. Making them a bit neater. And the pith area. Then we're going to do on the left hand side, as in the light side, I'm going to start to add a bit of highlight to those dark cells. So imagine they're wet. Each cell has a slight area of white on that side. Just a bit of shine. And let's have a floof. Then I think I'm going to go back to my 109 and add a little bit of yellow hue to my pith, because I think it's maybe a bit too white. Could do with a bit of hue, and then some white again. And then I'm going to go in with my 115, make it nice and sharp, and I'm going to add a sort of a dark edge to a few of those cells. And then, so they're not so distinct, I'm just going to go in with our white and do a very soft combining layer over our cells and over the edge. Now I'm just going to find my 117 and just 177, sorry, and just freehand in a bit of dark skewer so it looks more like it's going into the Satsuma. And then I think we want to go in with our white gel pen and we're going to highlight a few cells with our white gel pen. So I've got sticking on the left hand side of a few of the bits, and if you want any more depth to the white, then we could add a bit of Posca pen white instead if you want brighter white. Then I'm also going to add a little bit of white gel to the pith area on that side and just smudge it out a little bit with my finger. Remember to make sure you've got no white left on your fingers that you could smudge later on. I'm going to pop a bit of white pencil in this central area. And another little white blend layer. And because I've lost a little bit of my yellowy orange hue, I'm going to go for some 111, which is another cadmium orange, and do a golden layer on top. Okay, so that's the Satsuma layer. Let's move on to our banana. So for the banana, we're going to do a soft creamy colour over the whole lot to start with. So I'm going to use 107 cadmium yellow and a bit on the side of the pencil, do a layer of 107 all over. So we can blend that out into a nice creamy yellow as our base colour for the whole thing. So just grabbing my 101 and blending. Then what I'm going to start to do now then is use my white to colour outwards from the centre, so we can start to mimic the sort of striations in a banana coming out from the seeds, or where the seeds are. So now we're going to start with our white colouring out from the centre. Now the centre bits where the pips are is where it's a slightly darker colour, so I'm going to swap over now to my 109, and where the pips are, in the same directions as we used before, we're going to colour 3 sort of arrows into the centre in our 109, and then I'm going to add a little bit of it, just a little bit of the hue into the side of the banana. Then I'm going to swap to my 180, which is raw umber. That's going to be my darker colour for the banana. So it's got a very yellowy hue in it. We're going to do a darker centre to those arrows. So still doing in the same direction as we were before. And then we're also going to do some sort of, the banana has sort of dents down the side of it. So to mimic that, we're going to do some dents with this 180. So I'm going to do like a little triangle in, and I'm actually lining them up with the arrows, so that's where we're going to have our 3 dents. And then with this one, obviously we can see the dents going down the side a little too, and I'm going to add a little bit of this 180 for this shadow on the side of the banana too, so very gently, just adding a bit of it roughly over that edge. And now I'm going to go back to my white and do a blend layer, still going in the same directions all the way around the edge. And then a bit of a blend around the side. It's quite a banana-y, can't say that, banana-y colour. And just having another little look at it, let's do a little bit more where Annie put us in our seeds. I'm just going to put them in just a little bit darker with my 180 and then give it a floof. And I'm going to use my white to take out a little bit of the dark line around this left hand. So it's the grayscale, because we're doing such a pale thing, is still showing up quite dominantly. So I'm just going to go over just over that with my white pencil, wherever it's still a bit dark, so it looks less like it's got a line drawn around it, and gives a nice bright white edge on our banana. So sideways we want to add a few lines that are going, so we've got our 3 dents that we've got around the edge, and then also the side of the banana is a little bit stripy in similar direction, so let's add that. So we're doing a horizontal edge with a few lines onto our banana, and then I'm just going to add in a bit of that bit more shade, all with my 180. Went a bit wrong, so I'm just going to go and get my electric eraser and just tidy up that bit of line, give it a floof. Okay, that's my banana. It's cat hair, apologies. So now we're moving on to our kiwi. We're going to start with a creamy yellow base and then build up from there. So I'm going to do 107 again, just like we did with the banana. I'm going to do a gentle layer of 107 using the side of my pencil to get a layer of yellow all over the kiwi. So then let's swap to a green. So I'm going to use earth green yellowish as my principal green for the top for sure. And so what I want to do is do a bit of a layer all around the edge softly, and then gently blend in a bit of that green towards the centre. And we're going to start colouring in a circular motion, as in circular strokes all pointing towards the centre. So as you go round, keep heading in and out from the centre, like so. And then we're going to add a little bit of this green to the edge. Now let's swap back to our white. And once again, do a blend layer, but following those lines edge to centre all the way around to make our backdrop for our more details. And one blend layer around the edge. Okay, so that's our base green for our kiwi. Then what we want to do is, if we look at the picture of the kiwi, we've actually got proper lines coming in and out, and there are darker lines for every sort of area of seeds. So we've sort of got a bit of a star thing going on coming out from the centre, but you can see those lines almost all the way up to the edge as well. So let's start by bringing in some light green in segments down into the middle. So back to our earth green yellowish, and what we're going to do is start to, where there's seeds, make a bit of a darker line coming out towards the centre. You might not be able to do it for every seed, but do it for as many as you think you can fit in. working out from that middle. Starting to get those lines in. Now we want to go in the opposite direction, so we want to bring in colour from the seeds back. So let's swap to a dark green. Let's go for, I've got permanent green olive, which is 167. I'm going to use that, and from where I have a seed, I'm going to pull back the colour towards the edge, sort of making a darker green channel from every seed, or from most seeds. Then I'm going to add a little bit of this darker green to the actual edge of the top, so just so it looks like it's got some darker green coming towards the edge, and very gently adding a bit of that darker green at the very edge. And then I think I want to add just a bit more yellow hue in again, because we've gone a bit greeny and we want to continue with that sort of almost olivey green. So I'm going to add in a very gentle layer of yellow around, but not in the centre where it's pretty pale. Then I'm going to go for my white pencil, get it sharp, and I'm going to put back in with white the lines between our darker lines. So if there's not a dark bit of green, I hope somebody's doing a bingo where you win a prize every time I break a leg. Lead, not leg. So in between the seeds, don't have to be too accurate, just want to make this sort of liney star look. Let's have a floof. Okay, I'm going to swap for an even darker green now. I'm going to go for my pine green, which is 267. And where I've got my bits where my seeds are going to sit, I'm going to add in an even slightly darker bit of green. And that's where our seeds are going to sit. Then what we want to do is go back for our white and just blend everything out a little bit with a single layer of blending, following our lines. And now I'm going to add in the black seeds. So we want to have some dark black seeds and some slightly lighter black seeds, so we can sort of implying they're deeper down in the fruit. So let's do some. Now if you can still see the ones Annie did, follow them. If you can't, like me. So sometimes there's one, sometimes there's two, sometimes there's paler ones. So try and go random if you can. Following in my darker areas when I can. So I've got my seeds in. I'm going to add a smattering of green to the centre area because it had gone a bit of a funny colour. I'm going to go back in with my white to get that smoothed up and the right kind of colour for my kiwi. And then we need to work on the edge. So for the edge there's quite a lot, if you look on the picture, of sort of that ochre colour. So I'm going for a yellowy ochre pencil. I'm going to use dark Naples ochre. So you could use a normal yellow and then some raw umber, so don't worry if you haven't got an ochre colour. So I'm going in with my ochre. Can you see it's just yellow, a bit of a tinge of green, and I'm going to do that all over. And then on the more shady side of the kiwi, I'm going to add some 180. And And finally, in the deepest area of shade, I'm going to add some 177. Then I'm going to swap to white and do a bit of a blend. You can see that it's kind of getting round to being the right kind of colours. It's very olivey colour around the edge. So I'm going back in, same colours, same theory. Getting slightly darker with my 177. Swapping to my 180. And then finally my ochre colour on this side. And then I kind of just want to add in a little hint of green, so I'm going to go with my earth green yellowish. Adding in that hint of green. Doing a floof. Doing a blend with my white. So it's all a bit more of a smooth transition between the colours. And then we're going to go in with our 180. We're going to need it to be relatively sharp. So I'm going to give mine a bit of a sharpen. And then we're going to put lots of little just chunky dashes all the way around. So they don't need to be lined up. They need to be a bit random. I'm doing like a little double squiggle every time. Breaking my leg. Bingo needs to be played. Right, and I'm doing that all the way around in 180. And a floof, making some of them a bit thicker. Because if you look at the actual edge of the kiwi, they're quite thick, but also quite sort of like a stippled effect. Now I'm going to go in with my white and do a bit of that effect with white, concentrating on the left hand side where the light's hitting. So same little chunky squiggle, but trying to avoid the darker ones. And then using my earth green yellowish, I'm just going to add on. It's actually quite a hairy effect, so let's add on a few random hairs in the green, and then swap over to the 180, give it a sharpen again, just like we're giving the kiwi whiskers. And then let's add a few brown whiskers on as well, so we've kept a little bit of that hairy edge on our kiwi. Right, blueberry next. Just before we move on, I'm just going to pop in with my white gel pen and add in some of the light areas on the left hand side, just some little bits of white going in the direction that we want, and then we're adding a few bits of white highlight to a few of the seeds, mainly on the left, but maybe a few on the right. There we go, that sort of lifted that up a little bit. Right, blueberry next. Okay, for the blueberry we're going to use dark indigo and go all the way over the blueberry in dark indigo. What we're going to do is create a base, a pale base colour, and then make darker markings on top of it. So if you're looking at the picture of the blueberry, that very pale colour, like the cloud that's on the blueberry, that's the colour we're going for to start with. So that's going to be a sort of a backing colour. So I'm doing that all over. Then I'm going in with my white and giving that a blend. around the edge to make sure we're not going to see much of a line. And then give that a floof. So that's kind of our cloudy blue colour that's on top of our blueberries. And then we're going to use a little bit of a technique that I'm going to call bauble technique. And we're going to do it in dark indigo to start with. And that's the effect of making a circle just inside your edge circle. So if I start to just draw it in, what we've actually done is offset the circle a little bit and moved in a little bit, and we're actually going to use that to basically trick the eye into thinking this is a spherical object, while also getting in a few of the markations on the blueberry. So let's start to blend that out a little bit to make that a thicker line that's going to go round this inner circle. And then we're going to do the same on this left hand edge, just making that line a bit thicker, round. And then we're going to add a bit of dark in the area underneath the kiwi, and then make a darker line on this side, indicating that the main shade is over on that side. And I'm just doing a bit of blending still with my blue. It's not quite so liney. A bit more of the area underneath the kiwi. And then having a look at the picture of the kiwi, there's quite a purpley tone in it, so let's just add a little bit of purpley tone. And I've got pencil 249 I'm going to use with a little bit of a bluey purpley colour, and I'm going to add a bit of that now into my dark areas and my dark edge. And then because we're still quite pale, let's go in with a little bit of 199 black and add in some black to this outside, the right hand side of the inner circle. Bring it over to the back edge, adding in some black. So we're starting to get towards blueberry colour. Then just add in a bit more dark over on this side and here around the base. And now let's switch around to our dark blue again, and then blend a little with our dark blue, swap to our white, and then from the point of highlight, which will be the top left, we're going to come out, keep blending. So this is bauble technique, because once you add a highlight here and a highlight here, your thing starts to look spherical. So I'm just doing a white layer blend to get those colours all a bit smoother. And give that a floof. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the dark colours again, using a bit of a circular motion so as not to create lines, or if you are going to do lines, make sure you follow the curve. So we're keeping highlight here, C shape here, so that's the circle, highlight, shine of bauble technique for making things look spherical. And adding in a bit of the purple. Give that a floof. Then we need to add in our star shape again. So if you can still see the shape from the drawing, go with that. If you can't do a five-sided, a five-pointed star up here. So do 5 petals, and they've got quite rounded edges if you look at the photo. Doing all that in black, doing a floof, and then I'm using my white pencil, getting as sharp as possible around the edge of that so you can see it. So we can see it, so trying to get little white lines around the edge of my star. I've got something a little bit blueberry like. I think I might want to just make it slightly less circle and just do a bit of paler, so it's a little bit more irregular, bringing in that sort of paler colour within the blueberry. And then we need to go for our white Posca pen. Let's do it a dab off the side in case there's anything wrong. We need a little highlight top left hand corner, but bauble technique, and then we need a bit of a highlight bottom right, also the same. And then I think we just pick up on a bit of detail there near our star. So that's our blueberry done. So now we want to do pretty similar again now, but we're going to do for our grape, so we're going to add in a bit more purple. So now we're on to our grape. My grapes and blueberries in the Inspo pictures are incredibly similar, so you're making your choice now to do them in whatever order you want. I've tried them in both orders and it looks fine, so I'm going a bit more purpley toned with my grape, like I went a bit more bluey toned with my blueberry. But if you want to do it the other way around, don't feel you can't. So first of all, I want to do it just with my blueberry, the paler purpley colour behind that we're going to be able to see through, so sort of the clouding on the grape. So I'm going to be using 136. It is purple violet, and I'm going to go all over once with that. This is our base layer, so we're going to blend this with white, so the lighter parts of the grape are going to be very pale purple. I'm going to blend that now with white. Just made that background, or the clouding on the grape. Now that sort of colour, now we're going to go in with the darker colour, so let's go in with a dark purple, which is 249, and you know our bauble technique, well, we're going to be doing that again. So this is our circle within a circle, C shape, and I'm going to make it a bit wider using a circle technique. That's that darker bit. You also want to add it to this edge. So that's our shadow edge. Then we've got our inner circle. Sorry if that was a bit hissy. And then we're actually going to add just a small part of that circle here, so that's our circle shape, but I'm going to leave that very edge clear, and let's do dark purple around that bit of the stamp, and then we're going to work it up, so sort of the shadow on the base we're going to do in that dark purple too, and then we're going to use dark purple to create the shadow that the blueberry was making. Now this is going to be too purple for the grapes. I'm going to add in a bit of the dark blue that we used above, Dark Indigo 157. And over my very dark purple areas, I'm going to add in this bit of blue. Sort of remove some of the pink tone that we're getting. So all the places that I put my dark purple in, I'm adding in this sort of dark blue tone. Then we're going to go for our white. So we've got some highlight areas here, highlight areas here. Then I'm just going to blend this into a circle here. So I'm just blending with the white. Try not to remove too much of the colour though from our dark areas. That will happen a bit. So now I'm going back in with my lighter purple. This time I'm going to use a bluer toned purple. So we're going to go with blue violet. That is 1 through 7. And I'm bringing in a little bit of the colour from the inner circle that we used for bauble technique. I'm just bringing that across a little. And again from this side, bring it in a little. I think we'll perhaps bring some of it right over. Breaking up that bit of highlight on the right, and then so looking back at my reference picture, the dark areas are much darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some more dark blue and add in some more black. So I'm going to use 199 black, and I'm going to use 157 dark indigo. So in my dark areas, which I'm going to do here in this bit, the paper's quite saturated, so it's taking quite a lot of pressure to make a dent on the colours. And then the whole of this section here, let's get that all darker and get that all bluer. There's some firm dark circling strokes around that area, and then I'm going to bring just a bit of that blue into here, and a bit of the blue into the edges of the grape, sort of just de-purpling it a little bit. And then to go a shade darker, let's pop in with a bit of 199, darken up this bit here. Always find it quite scary adding black to things. I'm using the side because I don't want it to be too scribbly, and then blend it into that middle area a little bit, getting a bit nearer the colour scheme that I want. So let's go in with the white now. So we've got our highlight area. Let's make that not completely over that whole edge. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of that dark blue and add in a bit there. Back to my white. I'm using the side of my white for a bit more of a blending. I'm going to blend into some of this central area. Blend in some of that dark bit. So what I'm doing is just trying to remove any hard edges between my colours that I've used. Get it all a bit darker and all a little bit, just a bit less purple. I quite like the purpley colours, it's quite nice on the kebab, and I don't think anyone's going to mark your card for realism. But so back in with my black. Right, this right hand side, this right hand edge. Now we've made him quite a bit darker, quite a bit less purple. A bit more of the white, this area. So if we look back at our reference pictures, there's quite a texture on the creamy and paler area, so let's try and mimic that. Let's go in with dark indigo, give it a good sharpen. I'm going to do a little bit of scumbling, for want of a better pencil word, but I have to make up my own words for my pencils. So scumbling is little squiggly wiggles to give a more mottled appearance. Going to do it in some of the dark areas and some of the light areas. Doesn't show up much, but it's enough to give a bit of an indication. So now I'm going to do exactly the same scumbling type thing, but with a really sharp white. So try again. Do a bit of scumbling. Obviously it's going to show up much more on the dark areas. I've given it a little bit of texture. If it's too much texture, white pencil on its side and remove it a little bit. Then we're going to add in some brighter white, and because we did bauble techniquing, we're going to add a bit of a highlight here, just like we did with the blueberry. Let's give it a floof. It's going to be our grape. Let's grab our white Posca pen. Let's add a proper white highlight to that little highlight area, and let's add just a little bit of white to those two areas down the right hand side. And if you're not happy and they've gone wrong, or you're not happy with your placement, remember that you can come right up to them with a darker pencil and remove whatever you don't want. Remember to wipe the top of your pencil to get any white paint off, so you don't drag it into anything else. Okay, so this is my final section. If you're happy with everything as it is now, leave it as now. I always go in at the end and make a few changes, add details. I'm going to tell you what my thought process is for doing them. But if you're happy, stick with what you've got. Don't feel the need to do things that I'm doing. So when I look at it, I can look at it on the screen as well, so it gives me a different sort of viewpoint of what it's like, which is interesting. So this part of the stick that we put in, obviously I need to carry on up the highlight a bit higher and a bit lower to include those pieces that we added. So it's not such a line, and then I'm going to add a few white lines over on that side to break up that line a bit more, and then I'm going to add a bit of highlight here in this one, similarly to sort of disguise it a bit better. A bit of a floof. Then I'm going to add a bit more yellow tone into the edge of my kiwi, just because I'm referring back to it on the inspo pictures. It's definitely got a bit more of a yellowy hue, so I've gone in with that yellowy ochre colour. I'm going to swap, and I'm going to go in with proper yellow, so I'm going to use 107 for that, just making it a bit more limey. I think that makes it a bit more kiwi-ish. And then I'm going to also add a bit of the yellow into the central section to kind of bring in a bit more of that yellowy tone. And then also looking at my reference picture, a lot of the seeds are kind of just slightly under the flesh of the kiwi. So where I've got black ones all the way around, I'm going to use my white and just make them a bit paler. I'm just selecting random ones because I think I got them all a little bit too uniform. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is really sharpen my white and just add a little bit more light around the edge of that blueberry star, because you can't see it as well as I'd like you to be able to see it. Okay, happy with that. A little bit more white around the highlight on my grape. Softens it a little bit. And then I definitely want to whiten up the pith area on my Satsuma. So I'm pressing really hard with my white. Give that a floof. I'm going to add in a bit of white over our lines that Annie gave us for doing the segments. So I'm sort of making those lines a lighter thing, not a darker thing. And we've got a bit of white in that middle. Let's do a floof. Then I want to go in with my 115, give that a sharpen. And I'm just going to make that pith area a little bit thinner. And sort of add a bit of a shadow under the pith. If it doesn't sound like I'm swearing. Then dark orange around the outside of the cells a bit. Then I kind of want a bit of a unifying colour, so I'm going to go with an orangey yellow, so I'm going to use 111. And let's sort of unify those parts up a bit more. I think that's a slightly better colour. And then I'm going to go in with my white gel pen and just whiten up some of those pith bits even more. I've lost quite a lot of highlights, so adding a few of them on the left hand side of the cells. And then I like the highlights on my black watermelon seeds, but I think I'm just going to pop in and make them slightly less large highlight wise. So just go in on the, because Posca pen you can just pick it off or slice it off with your pencil, so you can always remove Posca pen, which is great. You can't always remove gel pen, but if you use your fingernail or a scraper you can remove a lot of that too. Now I'm going in with my 177 walnut brown, just making sure all those shade areas are properly dark. So you could use black for this if you were feeling bold, if you feel it's needed. But pressed quite down with 177, it's pretty dark. I'm just going to make sure the side of the kebab. I've gone a bit over my. Try that again. So I just want that leather kebab to be dark. Make sure it's darker further up. Just to make it obvious that that's the skewer going through in all the places that we can see it. So I'm just going to give that a brush off. I'm going to regard that as done for quick colouring semi-realism, and I'm just going to make this up into a quick card. So first thing I'm going to do is just cut out my topper. That's why it's got an edge around it, so you can just cut it to the right size straight away. If you've got a guillotine, please use your guillotine. Do it whatever way you're comfortable with. So I'm using a metal edged ruler and a knife. So just cut that down. So that's our topper done. So our topper is to go on a DL card. So that is, DL card is 11 by 20ish, but we can actually make ours a little bit smaller than that. So if I lay it on, I want to do a white line all the way around. That's going to be our backing paper, and I can knob a bit off the top. So I think I'm going to cut it to, rather than it being 20, I think it's 20.5. Obviously I'm using A4, you're probably using letter, but basically I want to have a white border all the way around the edge of my topper. I'm just going to work out what that is. So that's going to be 11 by 19. So if you've used this exactly the same topper as me, you're going to need an 11 by 19 card. So let's take off let's do the 19 first. I can't see that I'm lining it up with the grid on my workspace. I'm not going to be able to pull out far enough to be able to show you this bit, so bear with me. I'm doing 19 centimetres up. With my metal edged ruler, and then I want it 11 centimetres wide, so I'm going to cut it at 22 centimetres and then score at 11. So I'm just cutting it off at 22 and scoring it at 11. And I'm being careful because I don't want to get this bit wrong. So I'm just doing a score, not a full cut through at 11. I'm folding that in half. And that's my DL card blank on 300 GSM white paper. Nothing fancy about it at all. And then what I thought would be nice to do is use a bit of a gradient of colours underneath our topper. So I raided the Beach Day set, which I really like. I've used lots of this pad for lots of things already, and I was thinking maybe we could do a red, orange, yellow sort of semi-half rainbow underneath. Use the papers from that, so that sort of style. And then with our top up on top, nice and bright and cheerful. And we'll try and pick up on our background colours when we add a few embellishments. So let's do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the red on and stick the yellow on, and then cut the orange to go in the middle. Here we go. So it seems a shame to waste this lovely blue paper on the back. So I'm just going to bob on some glue at the bottom, and I'm going to line it up with the folded edge, so that's definitely covered. Then I'm going to do the same for the red. Same again, line it up with this side. So I've lined it up with my folded side. Then I'm going to let that dry a bit and then cut it out so it's the right shape. Just going to wipe off a bit of the extra glue with some tissue. And then I'm going to trim around this now to get it onto the right shape. This whatever way you would normally do it. I'm sure there are much better ways than the way I do it. And then butt it up against the card for this one. Not very straight, so I need that trim the other way around. See. Okay, so now I've got my top red and my bottom yellow, and then we want about a third red, third yellow, third orange. So a third of 19 is 6.5-ish. So I'm going to do a 7cm orange strip for the middle. I'm keeping all my scraps because I know I will definitely use them. 7 centimeters. So I'm using my grid to measure my 7 centimeters. Trying hard to get that straight. There we go. So we've got 7 centimeter width. We can just pop in the middle, and then we're going to put that about equidistant. I'll go for. I only see a little bit of it around the edge, so I'm not going to be too stressed about it. Just aiming for the middle-ish. Not too bad. I've got a little tab of paper on this end that I don't like, so I'm just going to sort that out. Okay, and now I'm going to open it up and chop that lid off to line up with my other papers and the edge of the card. Okie, and then we're going to pop on our topper with 3D foam, I think. So now that's all tidy, we're going to 3D foam mount on our topper. So I've just got some 3D foam and my sticky scissors, and I'm going to bob some on the back of here just to give it a bit of a topper, a bit of a lift. Now I've got the problem of getting it on straight, which is always much harder on camera for some reason. So lining it up. Popping it down. Okay, so I've just spent a few minutes sorting out sprinkles, deciding what I want to use, deciding what I haven't got that I would have liked to have, and this is what I've ended up with. So I'm using little oranges from the Orange You Sweet sprinkles, the little lemons from the lemonade stand sprinkles. I'm used the green dots out of these, and I think they're the confetti sprinkles, and I've taken the little green dots, bobbed a white paint pen spot in the middle, and then used a really fine micro pen to do some little black bits around in order to make kiwi slices. So it would have been really handy had I had the one in a melon sprinkles. However, I don't, and I live on the opposite side of the world from everyone, so I couldn't get them quickly. So I improvised, and I've used the eggs out of the Crack Me Up sprinkles and just painted them with Posca pens and a black pen to look like little bits of melon. Improvised. If you've got the melon sprinkles, use them, it will take a lot less time. Anyway, so I thought I'd just do a little arrangement around my sentiment, so I'm just going to bob these on. So I'm going to use my sticky pen, and I'm going to use my finer end Stamp Anything glue, which is great for everything. Really I use it for everything now. And then I'm just going to pop all these on. Try not to get anything else in. Sorry, I've got cats, it's inevitable. I'm just going to lift, drop, she says. Sorry, the Posca pen's a bit sticky in the middle. I like my sticky pen, but it works ace for sequins, not so well for clay, but I'm going to persist. Works even worse for Posca pen. Get him on. Okie dokie. use my fingers for that one, so I had to do a bit of a cut because I couldn't get it on. Okay, back to my bottom set. Remember, this glue dries clear, so it doesn't matter if you get a bit on the wrong place. So there's my little arrangement of fruit. Little pretend kiwis. And I think that's that done. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed giving a bit of a go at fruit. It was nice to use some different colours, nice to feel not constricted to the 24 box, but obviously if you are in the 24 box you can do all of this, you just maybe have to work a bit harder to get some of those more interesting or different unusual colours. I like doing some work on shine, and also just trying to get some completely different textures from normal was kind of fun. I did, in the making of this video, have to eat a banana, which I think you might have to give me hazard pay for because I'm really not keen. But I hope the inspiration picture was useful as you coloured along, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun following the other summer events. Okay then, bye.